So everyone be a little bit gentle at me. This is the first time running solo. So we're going to use Andy's template here for a bit, and then we're just going to open up to a big Q&A. So first we'll start with this disclaimer. I'll leave it up on the screen here for a second, but just basically stating we're not a broker, we're not an investment advisor, we're essentially a software provider. So if you want to know what to do with your retirement account or anything like that, we implore you to go talk to someone who's registered and licensed for that. Next here, just looking at the summit. I was actually spoke at last year's summit, and it was an awesome time with some great traders. And to be honest, I'm even more excited for this summer's event, because we have Brian Shannon, who was great last time. We have Brett Steenbarger and JC as well. And to be honest, I don't think there's a book that Brett has written that I haven't read for trading, and I definitely recommend you all do the same. All right, so here is kind of our schedule for what we usually have going. We have the trader room with our fearless leader Barry open every day. Mondays we have office hours. Wednesdays with Q&A. And then Thursdays, it's me. It's usually Andy, who's having a bit of technical issues, and Jamie, who's just taking some personal time off. And then keep in mind, we do have a support session open tomorrow. And for all of you new guys, I think this is a great place to go. It's usually not super populated, so you get some real one-on-one time with traders, and they get to walk through the program. So I think that's a great thing we have going. On top of that, if you're new or if you're looking to sign up, we have this Trade Ideas University, which kind of goes through beginners to advanced. You know, if you're wondering how to open a window, right, that's 101. If you're going to back testing and all of the advanced stuff, a lot of which we'll talk about in this webinar, that's going to be 401 and everything in between. So that's another good chance to learn the software and get all your questions answered. So basically, this is kind of my forte, and this is what we'll go over quite a bit, but we have the ability to automate your trading through Brokerage Plus. If you are a Interactive Brokers client, then you have the premium membership that Scott was just talking about there. So this, you can automate your trading directly. You can, just click and then trade. Speeds up a lot of things that way. A lot of cool different things you can do there. All right, so agenda for today. So this is going to change a little bit. Unfortunately, this bull flag that I know everybody's been super amped about that Andy built, I don't even have currently. So we're going to do a little market recap. We're going to do a little Holly recap, and then we're going to go into kind of what's more my specialty. I'm going to show you a little bit about back testing and optimizing back tests from there. And then it's just going to be a big wide Q&A where I'll just stand here and answer anything you guys have. I think we're going to do these a little bit further down the list, if that's correct. Yeah, so we'll do that stuff at the end. So I'm going to open up the questions panel, and I'm going to be kind of more or less freeballing a little bit here. So just be nice, guys. So okay, if anyone doesn't know me, I am Michael Noss, Bon Para in YouTube and Twitter, and kind of known around. I've been using Trade Ideas for about 12 years, where I started to trade at a prop firm in university, and kind of been with them and took them with me through all the different things that I've been doing, different trading styles, swing trading, position trading, all of this type of stuff. And then from about 6 months ago, I would say, I've actually started working with Trade Ideas. I've done a lot of help building some of the new strategies that you guys are seeing in Holly Neo and Holly 2.0, and some of them are making their way down to Grail. So if I needed to pick an area of focus, I guess for myself with Trade Ideas, it's the back testing and the automated trading and that type of thing. So it's very interesting just to watch Trade Ideas progress as kind of I have progressed in my trading, where I've gone from 12 years ago just scalping around the market maker to now where I would say 90+% of my trading is completely automated. All right, so let's just move this out of the way for now. I'm going to keep the questions box just here opened up, and be a little bit more liberal than we are most times when there's a more dedicated schedule. If you guys have any questions of anything I'm going through, anything you want to see, just post the questions there in the side. So just taking a look at the markets today, not the best day, but not really super bad. I'm going to open up my pen and just treat this like it's one of my YouTube videos for now. So I do a weekend wrap up once a week where I go through and I take a look at the markets, and we've been kind of just watching the longest time this $280 level, which I think kind of everybody else in the world is too. If I scroll out a little bit, you can see that we've been testing this for a while here. This, where, right, 280 was the point we tested here, here, and here, finally broke through, tested back up, and as we approach all-time highs, we're actually just basing sideways. So without making any predictions, because you know, technical analysis I do a lot of, more statistical analysis is my thing, but I think the more we kind of base and chop sideways at this all-time highs, the better we are. You know, the last thing you want to see for the bulls case is a test of resistance and an immediate pullback. The fact that we're kind of just sitting here, and if we look at the intraday action, just a lot of dojis, a lot of spinning top, a lot of indecision. At this area, this is a good way to kind of work off any resistance that would be here. Brian Shannon, who I learned technical analysis from and who is at our summit that I was just talking about, always says that you can either resolve oversold conditions through price or time. You know, so right now we're not so much dealing with it through price, but it looks like we're dealing with it through time. So the longer we stay up here, the more interested I am in kind of the bullish case from there. One thing I like to do that I don't know if the rest of the guys do that much is I like to kind of compare the different indices and see, you know, what they're doing to impact the overall. So if you look at the SPY, that's kind of what people say when they say the market, right? They're looking at the market as a whole. So from then I want to see, okay, well, what sectors are moving the markets up? What sectors are moving the markets down? Where would I be most interested to put my time, my focus, you know, places that are approaching inflection points? So I have this list, which is just a top list that I built and just attached a symbol list to it, where I get to just go through and say, okay, you know, here's all the different here's all the different USO, XLF, QQQ, IWM, IBB. So we've got small caps, tech, financials, oil, and biotech. The main one that I kind of want to focus on tonight, and I think has been the more telling story than the rest, is the XLF. Now, I talk about all the time how I'm a bit biased that I put so much weight on the XLF, but that's because I started my trading career around the 2008 area, where, you know, there was just a bloodbath in the financials, and that dictated the entire market. It was to the point where, as traders, we took the SPY completely off our screen, and we used the XLF as an indicator of what we thought markets were going to do today. And all this time, as the SPY was rallying and testing that 280 area I was talking about, we were hanging right down here on the XLF. So I was kind of worried, and we were getting a lot of disjointed action. But as the financials have been recovering, the market has recovered and broke that 280 level as well. So I'm keeping a close eye here on this current level that I've noted on the XLF, and that's going to be the biggest indicator and the biggest bull case to me. It makes sense because if you look at the Qs, which for the longest time were the leader, they're kind of lagging at this point. So it's almost like focus has shifted from the market, you know? So it's not so much the Qs as much as it is the XLF now. So just something that I note. I usually don't make trading decisions 100% related to that, but I definitely like to kind of keep my eyes open and see what's moving the market in when it comes to news and sentiment, charts and statistics, so that maybe there's something that will pop out at that. So it's basic overview of the market. Again, there's really not much to write home about. You know, obviously everybody's watching this area here, and as long as we maintain this nice upward trend, and as long as we don't take back 280, I think any movement we have in this area will be overall good for the market. if we get back under this 280 area, I'll have to kind of reassess, because that's a bit of a change of trend, nice trend that we've had here, as well as it's this support that held before is not holding now. Zoom in a little bit here. All right. Get this out of the way. We'll go back. What do we usually do after this? I'm the substitute teacher. I have to go as much as I can off the lesson plan. Holly recap. It was actually a really good day for Holly, and it was a really good day for some of the stuff that I've written for Holly. So if you guys want to know a little bit about how the sausage is made and a look behind the curtains, essentially a lot of what I like to do is I like to build these base strategies based off general theories that different traders have, based off, you know, talking to the guys in the room, based off things that I see myself, and then I set them up in a way that Holly can then take them and use her machine learning type of magic and filter it out and filter it down and kind of give you guys something that approaches you know, pretty good success. And one thing that I'll say, I've took a few of these today, and I know I'm biased because the ones that I took were my newest algo that you guys may have seen popping up or down, which is the trend play here. And you know, usually we have little write-ups that we can kind of talk about with how they are, but just a sneak peek into this, and I hope Dan doesn't slap me for giving away too much, but essentially what I did when I built this one is I looked at stacked moving averages. So I looked at kind of overall trends and said, okay, every trend that I go to and every trend player that I see, they always talk about stacked moving averages. So you have your short-term moving average, and then you have an intermediate-term moving average, and a long-term moving average, and then maybe like a super long-term, like the 200-day. So when it comes to building these algos and it comes to trying to figure out how to use trade ideas to its full potential, it's all about taking what you see in the market, what you see in the windows, and what you see in your charts and all this, and distilling them down to numbers. So what scenario I came up with that said, okay, this makes sense as a trend without being able to go back and point to every candle and say, you know, I want every monthly candle to be above the one before it or anything like that. So I said, let's use moving averages. When they're stacked like this, it's going to be some sort of indication that at least we've been strong in the recent past. And then from there, I said, okay, well, that's good for a daily trend, but what if we stack the trend? And that's why it's trend play. Again, I'm open to suggestions for names. I know they're not the best. So I essentially just transferred the same thing on the intraday chart. So every one that you see come through this trend play, even though Holly's doing her crazy magic to the background and changing everything every day and doing all sorts of wizardry that I don't even understand myself, this premise will remain throughout this. So when I saw these come through today, and we talked about, at least initially, how the SPY was very near all-time highs and pretty strong, although basing, I assumed that this play would actually work out pretty well. I actually haven't gone back to look at the statistics. Not the best. It looks like short was your game, which makes total sense looking at the market in hindsight. But this was my synopsis. So, you know I get a lot of questions on my YouTube and Twitter and all of this for how I trade Holly, and I think that would kind of be the best way to describe it, where I develop a macro view of the market. I develop a little bit of an understanding, which again, we have a list of what all of these strategies generally mean that you can read through. I don't have it on me now. If you email info@tradeideas.com, at trade-ideas.com, I can send that out to you. But I look at the strategies that are going to happen this day, and I combine them with my synopsis of the market. So I was to the point where I was saying, okay, well, we've been basing for 2 days. We're right at this point. If we get any momentum behind us, I think there's going to be a lot of people jumping on the new highs bandwagon. So I loaded up and I said, okay, well, I want to watch the trend play, and I want to watch, I think it was Float On and .do wants to go, and then took those trades. So the main one I took today that I think was the best was this Twilio. And how I do this, I know I've talked about on past webinars with Jamie, but is my personal favorite, is always think I'm too slow and too distracted midday to get that first print, to see it come through, look at it, and to make the decision and take the trade. There's lots of traders that are good at that. That's just not me. I'm more of a slow, methodical type of trader. So when we triggered and we pushed up on this candle, and if you're new to trade ideas, this blue arrow just notes what candle it triggers at. This blue line is the price that it triggers at, and this red line is your worst case stop. When I saw this come up, I was like, oh darn, I missed it. And as it pulled back and broke under the initial line, I just added a price alert. So you can just right click and add price alert. And what will happen is you'll be told when this thing comes back through. So as it came back through, I took my long here and I was able to not put my short down here where Holly suggested, but there was two lows kind of at, I think it was 78.5. So I just put mine a little bit under 78.5 and then moved on with my day. Got out partially as we got to the top and the rest at the top here. The main point, I guess, of this rambling is to just talk about there's different ways to do this. So even though I built this strategy and I understand how it works, I like to take that second play as well, the second mouse play that I believe it's called. So that's what we were looking from here, and then you can see what really started triggering was these short plays. You know, if we go back to the SPY, it's pretty obvious why that happened. We had a nice run up for the first 45 minutes or so, and then this big sell off. So downward dog, just to give you a little bit of a look at, is looking for stocks that have been moving up and they're coiling back over, and it's trying to short them as a little bit more momentum on the way back down has happened. And we've got some really good trades out of that with LX, where you saw this run up early. It started to come down. It was a nice short through here. And then BMA, the same kind of pattern where it runs up and it shorts down through here. So it's just interesting to see that even though these are different and this strategy will be completely different the next day, it's going to somewhat tie to the same type of thing that we're looking for each day. So eventually, you know, read that form, read that that description of all the different things, pick out the ones that you like and make sense to your trading style. There's an old disgruntled trader I remember at my old prop firm that would always laugh at people and said, I could give you tomorrow's paper and you'd find a way to mess it up. And what he was saying to them in a very gruff way was, it doesn't matter what I tell you, it matters what you think in your trading style. So that's what I always like to use Holly for, is the things that I like to see, I wait for Holly to give to me, and it kind of, you know, corresponds with those a little bit more. All right, so again, any questions, feel free to ask. I'm going to go through a little bit of back testing and optimization if that's interesting to you. This next Holly strategy that I'm going to build, or I'm trying to build to see if it works, and how I look and how I use the back tester. I can share this. I'm fairly certain. I'll have to check to make sure there's no custom filters in it. So essentially, again, a look behind the curtains. Every time I step on here, I feel like I divulge a little bit more than I should, but the process, I think, of me and the way I build is I just come up with a theory, and then I bang away with trade ideas, and I try to say, okay, how can you best express my theory? So I will sit and I will write down, you know, what I want to do. I'll even draw a chart. I have a little whiteboard beside my desk, and I'll actually draw out all the candlesticks of the chart, and then I'll say, okay, let's see how Trade Ideas treats this. So where I got this from was just a simple revision to the mean trade. I got annoyed one day that every trade I wanted to take as a breakout I missed, and every one that I bought immediately came back against me. So it was just, you know, one of those days as traders, we all have them. And I said, okay, well, I'm going to start trying to find a way to fate these. So then it comes to, okay, how do I build that, right? And that's always the question. How do I build this idea that I just got in my head from anger and frustration? How do I put that into Trade Ideas and have it tell what I'm looking for? Where in my head, I started to say, okay, well, what defines overbought? What defines something that's overextended? This is a tendency I think we all try to have as traders, where we want to pick the top. And although it's a dangerous style of trading, if you manage your risk correctly, it actually can be pretty profitable. So I looked at the most common things that were overbought. And one of them was, okay, is it overbought on the daily, right? Has it had a number of moves up in a row? So, okay, I wrote that down. Okay, I want my stocks to at least be, before today, moving up on the daily, because I want it to be overextended on both time frames. The same way we talked about the trend play, trending on 2 time frames, I want to see this stock overextended on 2 time frames. So I said, okay, well, so then if it's up a few days in a row, let's make it up a few 15-minute candles in a row. And then let's also make it far away from the 8-period moving average. And that's nothing really special, I think, about that moving average. I've just seen in a lot of places people saying if it's separated too far from the 8, don't look long, right? So if don't look long, maybe look short. So as I'm building this in my mind and I'm thinking of these scenarios, I'm also writing down, do we have filters for these? So up a few times in the daily, yes, we do. There's a website that, again, you can get sent that gives you a list of all of our filters, or you can just configure and you can just go into search here and you can see all of our filters here, right? So, if you were looking for, can I get things that were up a bunch on daily charts? So let me just type in daily. I think it's consecutive for what there we go. So yeah, how many days up in a row? How many 60-minute candles up in a row? How many 15-minute candles up in the row? And then I'm saying, okay, I have that. So what about the 8 MA? So do we have things for the 8 MA? And then you can scroll through and you can see everything that we have. So we do have change from the 8-period MA in percentage and in bars. Great. So I'm writing these down. I'm knocking these down, just trying to figure out how to get my idea into trade ideas, which once you get familiar with the system, which is my biggest recommendation, is just to play around, becomes fairly easy. So when I build this and I get to this point where I have everything that I need kind of sorted out, I say, okay, well, what alert do I use? So for those of you new to trade ideas, which Scott said most of you are not, but if you are, we have 2 types of ways to look at the market. We have alerts and we have filters. And alerts are that trigger event. So like a new high of day is an alert. But I don't want to see every new high of day. That would be annoying and I'd see way too many charts. So I just want to see the new high of days that are doing, X, Y, and Z. So those are the filters. So we already wrote down everything I wanted to see in filters, where I wanted to see consecutive days. So it has to be up 2 days in a row. I want to see at least it up 3 15-minute candles in a row. I put my price between $5 and $100. I have a minimum share requirement. And then my change from the day, I want it to be 5 15-minute bars, 5 average 15-minute bars away from the 8-day, just showing that this thing has been moving up dramatically. So then I go into the filter and I say, okay, well, what filter do I want? Where is it that I want trade ideas to alert when all of these other things are met? Well, I want it to alert as the stock is running up, because I'm just gonna, sit there and pick my top and pick my moment. So then I added that one. So what we end up with is this back test. So this is kind of the initial scan. This is the initial run. This is without me doing anything to it. It's just a back test of these results. Right? So that's not the cool part about trade ideas. The cool part is what's going to happen next. But I do hang out here for a little bit, and I want to see, obviously, this equity curve pointing up. I don't have commissions or slippage in there yet, but they'll go in later, because I just want to see, okay, does my idea make sense? Right? Does my idea make sense from a broad point of view? And for a pure discretionary trader, you could say, okay, this is all I need. I know that every trade I'm going to take around here is going to have a a higher probability of moving up than it's going to be moving down. Now it's only 52%, but it's still everything that I see that comes through this window has a higher chance of moving down over the next, I believe, 60 minutes than it does stopping me out. So that's a great place just to start. And then I'm gonna show you a little bit of the kind of trade ideas magic here in the back end. You can sort this data by a few ways. I like to look here as well, where you can see this is your daily histogram. So all of these red bars down are bad days for you, and all these good bars up are good days for you. And this is on average how many trades you take. Now, 100 trades a day on a regular basis is way too much for me as I'm getting older. It was probably more like what I was trading when I was a little younger, but that's fine because we're going to filter this kind of way down. Drawdown, you can look at how much max buying power required. So if I put $10,000 into every trade, I would need about a $600,000 account at max to take the strategy the way it is. But as we know, there's just kind of way too many trades happening right now. So that leads to this part, and this is what really made me fall in love with trade ideas when it came to actually back testing and building my algorithms, is that once I built this, I was like, okay, that's my idea. I don't know where to go from here. I had this idea. It looks relatively okay growth, so I know I'm not just like dead wrong. I have something here. So what this section does now is it actually takes all of those 3,000 trades that we saw before, and it splits them out by all of these different metrics. And I'll show you the massive list of metrics we have in a second, where it's saying, okay, well, if you took only trades, between $10 and $20, if that was your price tag, this is your win rate, and this is the amount that you make on average, and this is the amount you make total, and there was 500 trades. So that's interesting. Sometimes you can see, okay, maybe this strategy works better for lower price stocks, maybe it works better for higher price stocks. I don't know. Let me check, and this will show you the data. You can also do time of day, which is pretty straightforward, right? Does this strategy work better in the morning than in the afternoon? You can see that pretty resoundingly, if you're done by 2:30 my time, which as a very far East Coast Canadian is 1:30 Eastern, that, after that, you're kind of just wasting your time until the last hour of the day. And then we can go over to where the real magic happens, which is other filters. So just take a look at this, guys. You can do this same thing that I showed you by price and time with literally every filter you have here, right? So if you wanted to go and you wanted to say, for example, what is the distance from the VWAP? How does that affect my scan and my strategy and what I like to do every day? Well, would you look at that? If we're above the VWAP, we have a 52.7% win rate. If we're below it, we have a 47.9% win rate. So automatically, if we want to up the win rate of this strategy, we would say stop trading at 1:30 Eastern and don't show me anything underneath VWAP. But we can actually delve in a little bit further, where we can go in and say, instead of having 5% between these different things, let's happen if we just have 1%, right? You can see that, okay, not only does it make more sense to be above VWAP, but it makes more sense to be a fair amount above VWAP. If we go from being 1% above, or 0 to 1% above VWAP, to 1 to 2% above, we get a much higher win rate. We make, instead of $3 on average, about $7.60 on average. And again, this is assuming $10,000 invested or put into each one of these. And so right here, we can cut out a whole bunch of trades and increase our average just by making this one change. So from here, we can go and we can actually click on the window and on the row that we're interested in. We can right click on it, and we can say, set strategy minimum value distance of VWAP to 1%. And it will actually input this for us without me having to do anything right in this window. So we'll click OK. And let's run this again. The other thing I should note is all of the trading criteria that I've put in as well, which there's a fair amount, where we can say, so the hold time 60 minutes. Let's actually take that out and leave that in. So it has a stop of $1 right now. We can play with this later. And we're running for 64 days. In this summary screen, you can kind of see this is the way the strategy goes. So 11:30 is 10:30 Eastern, and 5 o'clock is 4 o'clock, right? It's going to hold it for 60 minutes unless it gets stopped out by $1, and we're back testing the last 64 days. Close this down. So you can see we went from, just with that one change, we went from about 52% to 56%. So right now, this window is now pumping out things that at least over that last 3 months period have been about 56% accurate. And if you know anything about trading, and you've been trading for any length of time, you know, any little edge like this is huge. So if we have, just say, 60%, if you can get a 60% win rate as a trader and you're managing your risk correctly, that's all you need. You know, I know everybody's always, okay, how do I get to 80% or 90% or 100%? But you know, that's a futile endeavor. You'd be better off saying, okay, how do I get to 60% and just make sure my risk is super under control? So now that we have this brand new data set, when we go back into optimization and we go back into these filters, we're going to have a completely new data set to run off of. So, you know, for example, if I take a look at DNR and a couple other things, I can start to see where I can make a little bit more money. So if we take a look at what ran today, it shorted BE at the end of the day. Let's go to something a little bit more interesting. Again, haven't had time to test this. Could have been an awful day for the strategy. Be nice to me. Okay, so we took a hit here on NTRI on this one. We took a bit of Etsy, and we got a bit of a scalp out of that. Again, this is going to be a primarily scalping strategy, but one thing I did note when I was prepping for this WPX, we got really close here. I think we top ticked it by, yeah, okay, so there's no way you would have gotten that price because that's the exact high of the day that this one found, about 1874. But what I've been noticing is that things that are less volatile revert to the mean less, which is, I think, interesting as an overall trading lesson, which is one thing that you will learn a lot by going through this process, is you'll start to see, I see a question I'll get to in a second where he's asking for the top optimization filters. And it's interesting that I think by finding these top optimization filters that I learned a lot about trading, even though by the time I got into this, I was trading for 5 or 10 years, because you yourself just saw me go through 3,000 trades and eliminate about 2,000 trades. So I was able to go through and I was able to say, when I'm playing a revision to the mean trade, if I am below VWAP, that doesn't really work very well. And if I am not very high above VWAP, that doesn't work very well. So that was a trading lesson done 3,000 times that you saw me do in like 5 minutes. So by doing that, I noticed that volatility is huge. So we actually have some volatility filters built in where I can go and I can prove my theory here. Let's go as percentage. And I say, so what about 0.1? Let's do 0.2. Where we can see that our win rate ups pretty dramatically if we add some volatility into this. So let's do this and run this, and then we'll get to Gregory's questions here while this is back testing. So top 10 filters for optimization. There's not really going to want to be, it's going to, oh, I messed something up there. Let me go back. It's all depending on the strategy. So I capped it off instead of, let's just do, so yeah, top 10 optimization filters. It's all going to depend what you're after. So myself, I'm not an indicator guy. You can see there's VWAP and there's moving averages in here. I'm personally using these as proxies for price action. That's what I'm using them for myself, where I'm using them to describe price action without being able to describe price action. So if you're a heavy indicator guy, your top filters might have to do with RSI and Bollinger Bands and these type of well-known indicators. For myself, it's all about price action. So what I really like is things like position and range. And what position and range is, which I have a little filter here for, is telling where are you in relativity to previous action. So if this is a candle, it could be any candle, could be 15 minutes, could be daily, could be weekly, could be yearly. Trade Ideas breaks everything down to numbers, right? So the bottom of this candle will be 0%, and the top of this candle will be 100%, and halfway through the middle will be 50. So we're looking at position in years range here. So this would be a yearly candle, and what we're finding is if you're in the top end of the year's range, it works a lot better than being in the bottom end of the year's range, right? So this is a good way to say, okay, well, where is the price right now relative to where that year's range is? So that's one of my main ones. The other ones, and I'm actually going to put this in because that just looks so good. The other ones that I really like, and I know this isn't 10, but the other ones I really like is the change from. And this is to paint. So if position and range tells us, okay, I want this position in range. So I want it to be at the near its 20-day highs or near its 5-day highs or near its 15-minute highs. This is describing how did it get there, right? So change in 30 minutes would say, okay, how did this get here? How is it that this is moving up like this? How is it that it's moved away from VWAP, right? Because all we did is we wanted to say that we want the distance from VWAP to be a lot, and we want the distance from the 8MA to be a lot. But what if we want it to get there in a big push and in a strong fashion? Well, for that, we would say change in, right? So change in 15 minutes, change in an hour, change in 30 minutes, whatever it is that you'd like to see. So I'm going to add this one in here as well. So you're kind of seeing that it's about cutting. It's about having your basic idea and cutting it down. So the way I equate it myself is I talk a lot about this as building a sculpture or building a statue, where what you're going to do when you build a statue is you're not just going to order a piece of stone and just crack at it real hard and hope something works out. What you're going to do is you're going to go and say, okay, well, say, okay, well, this is what I want, and you're going to draw something. You're going to jot it down. You're going to have something in your mind, and you're going to say, okay, well, let me outline the general figure of it. And that's that kind of initial base period that we just talked about. So then from that initial outline, that initial drawing and that initial outline, let me start to actually do the finer details. Let me carve out the fingers, let me carve out the eyes, let me carve out the nose, these things that could be problems if you just cracked away at it, and filtering them down. And you can see that we got, even though there's still a lot of work to do, so I can share this if I want. What I would say is, what I may do is shell out my Twitter a bit and say, if I get this to somewhere that I like, I'll share it then, because right now I wouldn't trade anything that has a negative risk reward like this. It's a recipe for disaster. But it was more the process I wanted to show you guys than anything else, which you can kind of see there with that. So that's kind of all I had at the top of my head. So again, let's open up to questions. We still have 15 minutes or so left. I'll give you guys a few minutes to type what you want to type, and I'll try to get to them as quickly as I can. Oh, I did something here. And then if there's no questions, then we'll just, I guess, call this an early one, and thank you guys for putting up with my rambling, my unprepared rambling. All right, so we got one question. What's the time frame for the composite rating to come out? That's going to be your stereotypical dev team soon. It's written. I wrote that with Andy. I think it was a brilliant idea. He had the logic behind it's done. It's how do we get it into the system without kind of breaking anything. So I don't know an exact date, but I can tell you we have our top men on it, and they're working tirelessly, because I really do think it's a cool rating for it. So great art said, all you do is remove the bits. That's exactly right, David. It's exactly what we're going for. He's saying, so all you do is you remove the bits that you don't like. They aren't part of the sculpture, and that's what we're doing. So what does the composite rating give? The composite rating is just a giant math equation that we actually milled about in Trade Ideas, and we went from statisticians, stats guys like myself, to fundamental guys, to technical guys, and it's kind of a bit of everything, where it's using a giant algorithm and saying, okay, well, what's the technicals look like? What are the social indicators look like? What are the statistical indicators? What are the fundamentals looking like? And it's trying to compile that together into something that just gives you a number. So you can rank whether or not this stock meets all those different things or not. How do we find the YouTube? I don't want to shill too hard on this, but it's Bonpara, Bonpara. That's my Twitter and my YouTube. You can find me rambling for thousands of hours there if you're that kind of masochist, to be perfectly honest. Can you share the alert, please? I can. I may need help on how to do it. Can I just copy and paste it in there? I think I can. Share to cloud, copy. I didn't even have time to set up my other monitors, guys. This was a really on the fly. I don't know how to chat. Do it in chat. I can do it in chat. There, it is in chat. Do it twice. It is in chat twice even. Does this help determine if you should take a breakout trade? No, this is a specific strategy that's looking for stocks that are a little bit tired on the intraday and the daily. When the crypto AI gets launched, will you be backtesting strategies for altcoins also? That's the plan. The plan is that we're going to kind of do Trade Ideas crypto style. That's going to be another soon answer. To be honest, I don't even know that one, so I won't even speak to its progress. But again, from what I'm hearing, it's being worked on for sure. Can you review the short squeeze strategy? Do you mean this one here? If you mean this guy here, then this is something that Steve Gomez actually made, and I just stole directly from him. And all it's doing is it's looking for stocks that are kind of strong, I guess, but the more important of them is just the fact that the short interest is really high, right? So they have to be above the 50-day moving average, and then it just sorts by short float percentage. So there's really no secret sauce here. This is more of something that I like to do by eye, but it does show me stocks with very high short float percentages that are above the 50 MA. So I know that there's at least a intermediate catalyst that's on the way that could pop this thing and send it flying. But yeah, I can't take credit for this. It's just completely stolen from Steve Gomez, who's at Today Trader on Twitter. Is there a better bearish strategy than shorting the junk? I don't. Defining better and worse when it comes to trading strategies is quite dangerous. So it all depends what your trading plan has. I know it's an answer that no one likes to hear, but it's what about your trading plan that it is that you like to short. When it comes to short strategies, I'm going to be totally biased and say you should go to Holly. Downward Dog was made by a handsome man, I think. I can't always keep track what I made. If you ever see Bonds Shorty, that is kind of a little bit sentimental to me, because that's my first algo that I built and I shared with Trade Ideas, I think 2 or 3 years ago, and was kind of the start of of our relationship. So I'm super biased against that one. Plus, I like it as a trading strategy as well. David, I shared the Tired Puppy one in the chat below. I think I did that correct. Where is Andy? Andy has had a horrible time trying to connect to the internet. He is all well and everything's good and everybody's healthy. He's just very angry at his internet service provider. Will we be able to connect Brokerage Plus to MT4 so we can automate strategies right into a prop firm account? No word on that yet. We're really trying to make sure that it's out of beta, that the Brokerage Plus is running smooth where it is, and then we're going to start transitioning it into other brokers. Myself, as a guy who loves to trade prop, I'm going to be on your side rooting for that, but it's going to be up to people way above my pay grade to decide what happens next. Michael, you definitely have a talent for teaching. Thank you. All right, so I think that's going to be all for questions. I think we're going to bring Scott back in to save me and go over a few slides here. Let me open this. I think we were on this one. Scott, if you're around.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. Great presentation. That is the right slide. So we want to make sure that everyone knows about our ebook, and it's really easy to get. It's free. Just go to trade-ideas.com/ebook. Plug in your email address there, and you get 5 strategies on how to win in a post-BTFD market, which we've definitely been in since February. We also have a podcast, new episodes on Fridays, most Fridays anyways. You just need to search for Trade Ideas Podcast in your favorite podcast application and make sure that you have added the subscription, and then you're ready to get the next new one that comes out. Additionally, we have a event coming up in October. Mike mentioned a little bit earlier in the program. Just go to TradeIdeasEvent.com to learn more about it. We've got a great lineup of speakers. You can meet the team. It's at a great location on 34th floor of the Symphony Towers in San Diego, overlooking the entire city. It's great. So it's going to be a full day. Includes breakfast, lunch, and a cocktail hour afterwards. Lots of networking opportunities. A good chance to talk with some really knowledgeable traders and investing luminaries. We've also go to TradeIdeasEvent.com, get information there, and you can reserve your tickets. We have a code that'll let you save 15% instantly off the first month or year of Trade Ideas. It's good this month, hot summer, all caps. Right now, you can also use that to upgrade from standard to premium. We're going to be changing the upgrade path and have to use different promo codes in the next week or so. But for now, you can still use the same codes that you used to purchase a new subscription. So hot summer to either start or upgrade and save 15% immediately. Again, thanks to Michael for subbing today for Andy. If you have any questions, shoot us an email, info@trade-ideas.com. You can find Michael at Bonpara. It's in the chat on Twitter or any of the other places to follow him. That's also his YouTube handle if you want to find him there. At QuantBot is Jamie Hodge, and at Today Trader is Steve Gomez. We've also got at Trade Ideas. Facebook.com/TradeIdeasPro is the location to find us on the Facebook, to like our page so you can share our stuff with your friends, and we post some different content there sometimes. Info@TradeIdeas.com is the place to send your questions. That goes into our help desk software to get routed to the appropriate team member. We'll have the recording of this up later on tonight or tomorrow, and you get an email reminder from GoToWebinar tomorrow about where that playlist is located to find the new video. Thanks, Mike. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Scott. Thanks, everyone, for being nice.
Yeah, have a good evening. Later.
You too now.